Redeem the time, because the days are evil.
The Bible has not changed!
Boldly proclaim the restoration and preservation of Christian values in America.
Satan has brainwashed a whole nation.
As goes the church, so goes the nation.
Nobody's convicted of anything anymore.
And now, here's Last Call with your host, B.J. Edwards.
Good morning, brothers and sisters in Christ and fellow earth travelers. Along with Mr. Anderson and Honor Mama Jeannie, you're listening to your Last Call, 2 hours of Christian talk radio with a sting. Brought to you by the Natural Family Foundation. As goes the family, so goes the nation. Our call-in number, if you wish to participate, is 614-423-4220. Our show can be accessed on the mmunited.org website if you've happened upon us by chance. I'm your host, B.J. Edwards, and this is my world. Hey, welcome aboard. We're sorry we're a little late. We're trying some new technology, and it's wearing us versus us using it, so bear with us. We may have some technical difficulties in and out this morning, maybe some reverberation, hope not. Hey, to educate a man in mind, and not in morals, is to educate a menace to society. Do you see it? This is today's most anticipated Last Call Back to School edition. ADDITION. I'm a math major. We're now in process, folks. Let the indoctrination begin. And I'm going to lean heavily on Mr. Anderson this morning.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
Oh, no. Oh,
yeah.
no.
You know why that is, Mr. Anderson?
Oh, because I used to do the dirty deed.
You used to teach. A retired school teacher.
Yeah, I used to teach, not indoctrinate.
And we are going to examine today's government-run cookie cutter centers. Hey, and don't miss our guest, Chris Sevier, in the second hour. Chris has quite a unique approach to the separation of church and state. What one might refer to as backdoor, especially when it comes to the homosexual mafia. And yes, that is a double entendre. We're using a new call number in for today, so if you'd like to talk to BJ or our guest, and this may not work because this is this new technology we're trying, but it's 302-202-1110. Do you think that's going to be working, Mr. Anderson, or should we shut that down and just go back to the 432-220?
Well, they can use either one.
Okay.
One at a time on the 423-4220 number.
Okay.
That's a 614 area code. That's a lot for somebody to absorb. Get a pencil out and write it down, or just
They
should
have their legal pads out anyway.
Yeah, go to the website, and it's written there on the main page.
The 614-423-4220 is, but not the 302-202-1110. Caller conference code 745-353.
Actually, that's on our other website, naturalfamilystrong.com.
We're doing to you what they do to our kids in school, so welcome aboard. We're getting you conditioned. We hope this will make it easier for you. We'll see. Hey, Saturday morning means Last Call Radio. Moi and Mr. Anderson. And please be sure, if you have not already, subscribe to our YouTube channel. It always helps. Before we get to our school edition, I need to clear out a couple of items. First of all, guns. And by the way, guns and emotions are never a good mix. Whether you're making laws or whether you're out in the public in Walmarts, neither situation is good before or after a tragic shooting. Gun control, the only way you can control guns. And that's not going to stop the killing. But the only way you can control guns is just to stop making them. Period.
That won't work because you can do that on a computer now.
Yeah, you can, can't you?
And, it's controlling guns. The best way to control them is to have both hands on the thing, carefully aimed at a target, and squeeze the trigger slowly. That's gun control. And I got an interesting headline. I don't know. This just kind of hit me.
Okay.
After the murder rate passes New York City, London Mayor, I'm not sure I say this name right, Sadiq Khan.
Is that Irish?
Sadiq Khan, this is a real headline. Sadiq Khan calls for sharper knife control.
Sharper knife control.
Yeah.
Give me a break, Mr. Anderson.
Well,
Give me a break.
actually, their murder rate with knives has outdone the murder rate with guns
Yep.
in New York.
Yep. I've got an article, if I get to it, talks about how the United States compares to other nations with regards to this insanity.
Good morning, Don.
Yeah. Go ahead and bring on. We'll get right with you, but I want you to note. I want to note something here. That
Good morning, Kevin. I'm just calling in. I tried that other number, and it didn't come through and everything, so I just wanted to let you know.
the 302.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
You tried it and it didn't work?
Tried it, didn't work.
Huh.
Try it one more time, Don. Hang up and
Will
try it
do.
one more time, thanks. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, thanks. While he's doing that, when it comes to behavior, now think about this. Our children don't wake up or don't wake up one morning and say, you know what? I think I'm going to go out and kill somebody today. Or maybe I'm going to find a conservative with a MAGA hat and shoot him. Let me try.
I don't know if he's coming through on this.
Yeah, I can't get there. I don't know how to get to that window I had earlier.
You getting anything, Kevin?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, you're coming through.
We can hear you. You're coming through loud and clear, Don.
Okay.
That's encouraging. Very encouraging, because we were having issues with it earlier this morning. We've got our test crew out here.
Okay, there's just a delay on it.
Okay.
So
I don't know where it
the
is.
other technician here, he's having more difficulty.
I don't know where that. Maybe you can find that window. Thanks, Don.
Signing off.
All right, thank you, sir. And our children don't wake up one day and just say, I'm going to go out and kill somebody. They don't do that. That's not what they do. It's not a last-minute decision. It's something that it works pretty well.
Is that what you're looking for?
Yep, thank you.
Okay.
Keep that up there. And they don't go out and look for somebody with a MAGA hat. Just wake up one morning and go out and I'm going to pound on them. That's not what happens, folks. We need to be concerned about how our children are being emotionally trained and brainwashed. The best case scenario, this is the best case scenario we're going to get out of all this brainwashing that's coming from the news and the media, and especially starting 12 years of government-run schools. The best we're going to get out of this is that children aren't going to respect their parents. That's the best case scenario.
That's not very good.
Yep. If schools are effective.
Not very good.
Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Jeffrey Epstein. I know there's a lot of talk. This is going to be like the John Kennedy thing. We're going to find some sort of a magic bullet here, aren't we? Or a magic noose.
Well, he may not be dead yet. He may be in Israel.
Right. As reported by today's news media, Jeffrey Epstein is dead of what is believed to be a suicide. And the speculation is how a man who tried to kill himself 2 weeks prior was removed from suicide watch just hours before he died. There have been a lot of trial balloons sent up, right? After the supposed suicide of this monster, of Mr. Epstein. And will continue to do so until marketeers find the right solution or combination of explanations that they can slip by the public. Then, of course, after all is decided, the conspiracy theorists will come in and do backseat driving and begin to weave their tales into the situation by somehow discovering precisely a little-known fact. Did you know? Biologically that can't be, or anatomically that can't be. Which was hidden by authorities, right? I can hardly wait for that. The most recent is that the guard was supposed to be keeping an eye on him, has some temp job, and he was left alone for hours. One of the two people guarding Jeffrey Epstein, when he apparently hanged himself in federal jail cell, was not a full-fledged correctional officer, a temporary employer. And go ahead.
I was just going to say, something I don't think they would do with such a high-profile prisoner. I just can't imagine them doing that unless they had a plan.
And William Barr is threatening to get to the bottom of it. And there are serious irregularities at his facility that are deeply concerning and demand a thorough investigation, according to Mr. Barr. We will get to the bottom of what happened, he says. Mr. Barr did not offer additional information about the problems at jail, especially the lack of close supervision. Epstein, who made his fortune as a former hedge fund manager, has deep money pockets, but also to some of the most powerful people in the world, from the British royal family to President Donald Trump and the Clintons. How deep did he go? He knew the heavy hitters in society. Troves of incriminating evidence were found in his Manhattan residence. And more could be on the way as the FBI raided the mansion in the Virgin Islands, dubbed Pedophile Island. The FBI and the Inspector General, Department of Justice, are looking into Epstein's suicide, while the conspiracy theory nuts are starting to have a field day. Wow. Folks, this is a bit elongated explanation or presentation of what's happening. I hope not to talk anymore about Jeffrey Epstein. It's really not going to do any of us any good. It's just going to cause more confusion, more discouragement, and more lack of trust for both sides. I'm hoping to let the subject fade into the sunset. I expect others to talk more, but it really means nothing. And we will never, ever, ever really know, not for sure, whether Jeffrey killed himself or had help. And that's really what we ought to concern ourselves with. How is this? Everybody knew that he'd never get to court. Everybody knew that. Fate accompli, right? Hey, when we come back, we're going to start in on the schools. Yeah. Got some interesting statistics for you. B.J. Edwards along, Mr. Anderson, your last call. I don't know where you got that from, but we'll take it.
Gotta have some variety.
Last call with B.J. Edwards. Real talk about real life.
If you want to call in, 302-202-1110. And then you can hit the caller conference code, 745-353. You're trying it out this morning so we can take more multiple calls. 302-202-1110. And then the code would be 745353. Each year, the National Center for Education Statistics, NCES, compiles some back-to-school facts that give us a snapshot of our schools and colleges for the coming year. I'm going to get into that, but before that, I find myself agreeing a lot with Mike Huckabee. For instance, Mike was talking about the children in America, a thought that was triggered by the very lost young man on the U.S. fencing team that had absolutely no idea how fortunate he is. And we really don't in America. We really don't. And that's a problem. And he doesn't know that because most children his age were born and raised in the richest, freest nation in history and had been miseducated to believe that the United States is a source of all the world's problems. We are a oppressed, racist nation with a shameful history that needs to be torn down and a presence that needs to be fundamentally transformed. They hate free market capitalism, taught to, want to trade it for socialism, communism, with its empty promises of free stuff. They deny that America is an exceptional nation. They talk a lot about other people's privilege, but don't recognize the incalculable privilege they enjoy simply by being born in the USA. In fact, they're so ashamed to be Americans that they can't even contain their contempt long enough to stand for the flag and the national anthem. But in other nations, where people know what real oppression is, they don't take freedoms for granted like Americans do. American critics protest the way we deal with the flood of people trying to enter by any means, including illegally, but never ask themselves why so many people would risk their lives to come to such an awful, exceptionally bad country.
That's an interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
Why would they do that?
Yep.
And another interesting picture is the protesters in Hong Kong waving the American flag because they want to be like us and free of China.
And singing the national anthem?
Yeah. Maybe they know something our school children don't know.
Maybe we should ask the protesters in Hong Kong, who are barely standing up against the communist government of China. To them, America is exactly what it has been for well over 2 centuries, a symbol of the rest of the world of freedom and unalienable God-given human rights. They know what our flag or anthem stand for, and they hold them in reverence and employ them as the most powerful symbols in the defiance of oppression. The good news is this. Parents nationwide are starting to grow increasingly unrestive over what they perceive as the left-leaning policies of public school teachers and their unions. When reviewing homework with their kids, many woke parents often come across material that seems more aimed at indoctrinating students in political correct and leftist policies instead of teaching them basic skills in required subjects. The problem seems particularly acute in California and Michigan, where some teachers have become outspoken members of an organization that is a visible part of the Antifa movement. We've got a clip here from California. This is new, and this is what they're doing.
A California curriculum proposes lessons to children on so-called oppressive systems. Critics are calling it outright radical propaganda being forced on children and their parents. One America's Chanel Rion reports.
California's ethnic studies curriculum aims to teach children how capitalism and father figures are racist, oppressive systems, and aims to erase gender oppression using a radical new lingo. Heritage Foundation's Mary Claire Anselm told One America News that this partisan curriculum is counter to the values of most Americans.
The average person takes a look at this curriculum and says, this is a bit ridiculous. I mean, calling capitalism an oppressive ideology, replacing the word history with HX. And I think that just the average person is taking a look at this and saying, this isn't what the values that we want taught in our public school system.
The curriculum's goal is to teach children how capitalism is equal to white supremacy, racism, and patriarchal oppression. Its official definition of capitalism includes, quote, scholars are often very critical of the system of capitalism as research has shown that Native people and people of color are disproportionately exploited within the system. The curriculum goes on to teach children how to join movements to oppose such systems, while lionizing violent leftist groups like Black Panther, anti-Semitic organization BDS, and Third World Order, among others. Absalom says teachers' colleges are to blame.
Part of the reason that I think this is happening is because we have one filter through which we're getting all of our teachers in America, and that's the teachers' colleges. These have been historically very left-wing institutions that teach a lot of the same ideologies that we're talking about here today.
One nearly unanimous criticism is its use of politically correct jargon, such as erasing the word history, replacing it with history, and terms like cis-heteropatriarchy, meaning non-LGBTQ male oppression, going on to say, quote, ethnic studies also examines borders, borderlands, mixtures, hybridities, nepantlas, double consciousness, and reconfigured articulations.
Excuse me?
Unfortunately, we've gotten used to this at some level on the higher education
Say that
level.
again.
We're seeing this kind of jargon, this kind of quite leftist ideology taking place in our institutions of higher education. It's very troublesome to see this sort of filtering into our institutions of K through 12 education.
To help eradicate bigotry, racism, and hate, the curriculum includes step-by-step examples for children to advocate voting rights for illegal aliens in local city council and school boards. Absalom says California parents must take action.
It's really important to point out that California has virtually no school choice. And so if you're a parent and this isn't the values that you want being taught to your child in school, you don't have a lot of options. Until rigorous school choice legislation is passed in California, until there's that real pushback, that real meaningful pushback that these schools are going to lose students, unfortunately, I think we're going to see a lot of this egregious overstep in terms of identity politics take place in our schools.
The curriculum proposed by 18 California professors and teachers is 300 pages and currently posted on the California Department of Education website, where the public can weigh in with feedback until August 15th. Chanel Rian, One American News, Washington.
Want to see more videos?
302-202-1110. 302-202-1110. And then if you want to talk to us, 745-353. Hit that code. And we'll connect you in. B.J. Edwards along with Mr. Anderson. Back to school statistics. Enrollment. How many students will attend school in the fall of 2019? About 56.6 million students will attend elementary, middle, and high schools across the United States. 50.8 million will be in public schools, 5.8 million in private schools. Private schools aren't really that much different because they have to teach their children, even Christian schools, how to get along, how not to offend.
Well, not just that, but they do look at state standards and want to follow those as closely as possible.
They have to get certified.
So they can be accredited and get their graduates into colleges, which are even worse.
Amen to that. Of the 50.8 million public school students, 1.4 million are in pre-kindergarten. The indoctrination starts early, folks. 3.7 million will attend kindergarten, 35 million through grade 8, 15.3 million will attend grades 9 through 12, 4.1 million will attend 9th grade. The grade students typically enter high school. About 3.7 million students are expected to graduate from high school during the 2019 and 20 school year, including 3.3 million students from public schools and 0.3 million from private schools. They talk about the millennials, Generation X. These are graduates who have been through the indoctrination centers that you and I are both paying for. Personal opinion, government-run schools, public schools, whatever you want to call them, are a bad idea. Period. Is there a way to improve them? Not as long as the government, aka politicians, are making the decisions and unions are making the decision, because those are the two entities that are making the decisions, and all these adherent sexual groups are working through both of those to make sure that your children, in essence, don't know which way is up. I can't afford to send my child to a private school. I can't afford to send my children to a public school. After 12 years of indoctrination, and if you send them on to college, which is no more than finishing school, they're not being taught. They are not being taught math. They're not being taught the basics. They're not being taught that.
One of the things that most of us, especially our generation, us older guys, our experience with school was 50 years ago, 40, 50 years ago. And what we had and what we were trained and what we were taught, that's what we judge the school on today, but it's way different. Not even close.
Not even close.
And so parents or anybody who hasn't been in a school or involved with the school system for that long a time has no idea what's going on there.
Amen to that. These are indoctrination centers. They're spending their money controlling a child's behavior. Go ahead, Mr. Anderson.
Well, and they really resist parents coming in. They don't really want parents to know what the children are being taught. They don't want you to visit the classroom. Yeah, you might get in. They might let you in, but they're going to set the stage if they know you're coming. They're not going to let you just walk in at a random time. You have to make an appointment, and then the principal or whoever's in charge will talk with the classroom teacher, and they'll set the stage for that visit. But it's almost like, there's a inside secret going on, and the children, well, by default, kids just aren't very talkative about what goes on at school. I think most parents experience that. Well, how was school today? Oh, it was all right. That's about the most you get. Well, what did you do? Well, we just, nothing. That's probably the number one answer if you took a survey. What did you do today? Nothing. And, and parents will sit on that. They'll go like, well, okay, I'm not getting anything out of my kid.
Trust the schools. Trust the schools.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, well, that's what, at one time you could.
Trust the teachers, especially.
My parents did, but I was learning math and English and U.S. history, saying the pledge, even at times, even starting with prayer in the morning. That's the kind of school that I went to, but it's not the kind of school I taught in. When I became a school teacher, those things were starting to be taken away. And, of course, I was in college, and I was being indoctrinated of what to teach.
Yep.
Science is a simple example. You teach evolution.
Hold that thought when we come back from break, Mr. Anderson. I want to continue that.
Huh?
Yep, I want to continue that. B.J. Edwards along Mr. Anderson, your last call, 302-202-1110. And then 745-353. Love to talk to you. Personal experience. How's your child doing? Do you really know? Until they pick up a gun and shoot somebody. But I thought he was a nice kid. B.J. Edwards along Mr. Anderson. Your last call.
Stay tuned for Last Call with your host, B.J. Edwards.
We're overhauling government-run schools today. We call them public schools. That's because they're publicly financed. We'll get into a little bit of that later on. Mr. Anderson, our co-host, happened to be a school teacher, and I know, Mr. Anderson, that things have probably changed radically since you were there, and what we're doing today, what you see today and what you hear today, not just the tape that we played from California. I mean, that's the west wind that's going to blow this way, and we're going to get it. So, what are we looking at, Mr. Anderson? Comparatively speaking, if you would, how do you compare what's going on today as versus what went on 30 years ago? Do you see more emotional indoctrination and less educating?
Well, that's one way to put it. Yes. It started with self-esteem when I was still in the.
Yes, there's the biggie.
I'm retired now 10 years, and in that process, when I started teaching, I actually had control of selecting my materials as a teacher. I could choose the books within reason. I mean, there were the school district selected the textbooks basically, and there was a multitude of texts that you could go through, but the teachers went through these books and they selected them, and they generally look at text for content, and now they're looking at textbooks, very limited choices that meet state and federal standards, which is way different. If you're choosing, if you're a history teacher and you know what kind of content you want to teach, you look for books that have that content. Now you're looking at books that meet these state standards. And what are those state standards? Well, you would have to go and get these big, thick books and read what each grade level is supposed to be teaching and how many minutes. It's no longer the teacher teaching, but the teacher is now programming. And that was one of the big differences I saw from the beginning. I wrote my own test. I wrote my own. That's when I began. When I started in the school system, and they said, "Well, here, you have this budget, and you can do this, and this." Now, when you walk in, they hand you this program, and this program, and it even has the dialogue printed out for the teacher, what they're going to say and what they're going to do. I don't even know why you need to go to college to be a teacher now, because the whole thing is already written out for you. I told somebody, my chiropractor yesterday, I said, when I was a teacher, I like to teach my students how to think, and now they teach their students what to think.
Yeah. Great point. Fall of 2019, how does the enrollment compare with years in the past? It's not going down, sadly. Is expected to be slightly higher than the 50.7 million students enrolled in the fall of 2018, and it is the highest enrollment ever reported for public schools. Total public elementary and secondary enrollment is projected to increase between fall of 2019 and fall of 2028 to 51.4 million. The projected 50.8 million public school students entering pre-kindergarten through 12 in fall of 2019 is expected to include 23 million white students, 7.7 black, 2.1 two or more races, 0.5 million Americans, Indian, Alaska Native students, and 2 million Pacific Island students. Since the fall of 2014, less than half of public school students have been white. The percentage of public school, that's why they can teach anti-white history. Look, the white guys are the bad guys, especially if you're a Christian. You understand what's happening here. This is happening to your children if you're white. And if you're black or if you're another race, then your children are being taught to discriminate.
So why are white children depressed and full of anxiety when they go to school?
Since the fall of go ahead.
They're erasing that self-esteem of the white child.
Yep. Since fall of 2014, less than half of public students have been white. The percentage of public school students who are white is projected to continue to decline through at least the fall of 2028, with the percentage of students who are Pacific Islander and American Indian Alaskan Native. The percentage of students who are Hispanic, Asian, or two or more races are projected to increase. Multiculturalism and diversity, right? The percentage of blacks, except if you're white. You got to have something. There's got to be a bad guy and a good guy. Well, the good guys are no longer wearing white. Right? Huh? To learn about student demographics, the NCES is where we get this information from. They give a variety of facts. I find this just absolutely incredibly frustrating, what we're doing to our children. I mean, you just heard what California schools are doing.
We're attempting to do, yes.
If you don't like something, just call it racist, right?
Thing is, the whole process goes back to John Dewey, from what I understand.
1913.
And John Dewey was a communist, and he wrote a plan to indoctrinate the children. He knew he would never live to see it carried out, but he knew that this would happen, and then that this would grow. Now they're just getting more bolder, coming out of the closet, as they say, and it's in your face. Parents are less involved. Both parents working. They don't have the money to go to other kinds of schools. They don't have the ability to even spend time with their children, going over homework and reading the text and the things that the kids are studying. And now you don't even see textbooks. I'm hearing from my grandchildren that everything's done on Chromebook. And
ooh, Chrome is that Google?
Yeah. Chrome
is Google.
Yes, I believe it is.
It is.
And so, who knows what's being recorded on each child's Chromebook? It's not going away. We know about that. What goes into a computer doesn't go away. You can hit delete, but it's only deleted from you, not from Big Brother.
Yeah.
So parents are very disconnected from their children. We were talking about that last week, with the a little bit about the Columbine, the parents of the students that did the atrocity at Columbine several years ago, and that they had no idea what their boys were up to. That's how disconnected parents can be. Even good parents still don't have the real picture of what's going on, what's being told.
I want to give Don a plug here because I like him and I like where he's coming from. But this can't be, money is the power to make decisions, folks.
It absolutely is.
And we have two parents that have to work. So they pawn off their responsibility to the government, to other individuals, to complete strangers. And you're going to find out most of who do not hold your value system, not even close to it. As a matter of fact, most of them are against your value system. Yet you pay them to babysit your child. You think they're educating them, but they're not. They're just emotionally arming them. And if you're white, that's not to like you. Actually, it doesn't make any difference what nationality you are. This is about hate. And spiritually, we understand why and where that comes from. This is just a flavor of it that's being bestowed on our nation. And it's really difficult to stop it. Hate is an incredibly powerful emotion. And our adversary knows that. And that's why he's doing what he's doing to our children. Again, I always refer back to the natural family aspect of it. In the garden, that's the first thing that Satan attacked. And what happened to Cain and Abel? What happens in the family when we enter hate, envy, all those things that, listen to the politicians today. It's all about hate. You should hate this and you should hate that. Vote for me and I'll set you free, right? That's not happening.
Well, even saying you shouldn't hate, or the protest against hate is filled with hate within itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's cloaked. Hate is cloaked in fake love, I think.
Some form of that, yeah.
I'm not quite sure how to state it, but just bringing up the idea of hate is a bad thing in my mind. We want to plant better seeds.
Yep. Amen to that, brother. Amen to that. And we just have to, what we're doing to our children, first of all, what the government is doing to our children is no more or less than child abuse. They are emotionally charging your child. They are separating your child from you. You send your child to government-run schools. What do you tell them? Respect authority, right? Well, those teachers, whether purposely or not, are usurping your parental authority. They're in charge of your child. And then they stick them in a personnel pool with other children whose parents may or may not have, doesn't really make any difference anyway, your moral bearings. And they get a hodgepodge of this and that and the other, and they soon learn that, well, there is no difference. What we're teaching our children is there's no right and there's no wrong. That's what we're teaching our children. And then they're taking that out there.
Conformity is what they're after. They want them to all conform. You know, where stand, sit, read. They want them all on the same page, on the same book, at the same time of day, all across the country. That's the government plan.
Amen. Amen. Again, remember, kids, if you don't like something, just call it racist. That's been working for the leftists since 2008. And nothing at all has gone wrong since, right? We haven't seen the degradation of society since the left fully embraced the everything is racist mantra. We definitely didn't see overwhelming economic struggles and stagnation while the left was in control of Washington. Now, California is taking this idea and running with it. The irony is that people are decrying everyone else's racist. And that's the very foundation that made California what it is today. And you better take a good long look at what California is today. Take a look at the homeless. Strange times. More facts and figures from your payment of our government-run schools. B.J. Edwards along, Mr. Anderson. Your last call.
Stay tuned for Last Call with your host, B.J. Edwards.
B.J. Edwards along, Mr. Anderson. We're in school today. Wow.
Get your pencils out and your Chromebook. Mm-hmm. You don't need pencils now. What did I say that for? Oh, no more trips to the pencil sharpener, kids.
It's not just the children that are going to be voting progressive and liberal. There will be about 3.7 million teachers, and a lot of them have families, in the fall of 2019. 3.2 in public, 0.5 in private. How much will be spent on kindergarten through 12th grade education this school year? $13,440 per student. $13,440 per student. $680 billion is the projected current expenditures for public elementary and secondary schools. What about colleges and university? How many students will attend colleges and universities in the fall of 2019? About 19.9 million. 13 million students will graduate with a 4-year degree. 6 2-year. What does that mean? That means that the number of indoctrinated individuals, the ones that you're going to be voting with, maybe that's the wrong preposition to use, voting against, or they're going to be voting against you. I don't know how, and I know I have a lot of confidence that President Trump will win the election in 2020, but as I say that, I don't know how he can. With the Generation X, Y, Zs, whatever, if they take note, and I don't care who it is, you could have Mickey Mouse, if they have a D over their name, they're going to vote for him. Whatever gender they are or say they are. Again, that's because of hate. Donald Trump, and I don't know the man all that well, but what I've seen him try to do, or maybe better yet, say that he's trying to do, seem to be very conservative. And I like that. I don't know where that goes from here. I know there's been a lot of stumbling. I mean, you've got the judicial in his road, you've got the deep state in his road. But if he ever gets out of office, the good news is there'll be something like another Tea Party come out of this, which I guess is good. But man, it just scares me. With Google, with Twitter, with Facebook, they are all going to do exactly what we accused, or not we, but the progressives accused Russians of doing. They're going to tamper with this election. They're going to control the amount of information you get, the flavor of it, and what you should think.
You're already doing that.
So you've got government-run schools pumping out millions, most of which are going to be progressive voters, and teachers that are going to be progressive voters. And you've got Google supporting that, and you've got Facebook supporting that, and you've got Twitter supporting that. You have the deep state supporting that. I mean, they're going to continue to attack the President of the United States. And I look at somebody's enemies, and I can pretty much tell you what the individual's about. And I look at his enemies, and I look at what they do and how they do it. And I'm going, okay, don't know Donald Trump that well, but the right people don't like him. So let's see is that a good way to judge somebody, Mr. Anderson?
A lot of the time, yeah. No, yeah, by who their enemies are.
How can he win? How can he possibly win if they're controlling all the information? You don't even have to tamper with the voting machines. You're tampering with the voters.
With their minds.
And then the discouragement that's going to come, and I can tell you, 2020, September, October, this is going to be a very dark, dark period in America. Very dark period. And the light, yes, does come from our Creator.
And once again, even if our candidate of choice wins, you can't back off. You've got to stand and support what's right. You just can't say, oh, well, we won, we're okay for another 4 years. No.
Step up to the bat, one swing. Okay, I'm done. I did my job. Right?
I hit the ball, right? Do I have to run too?
No. All you have to do is swing. You don't even have to hit the ball. Just swing. That's all we ask you to do. Just swing. Hey, I do want to thank all of you that listen to this program. And I've got a kind of a good news, bad news. I don't really, I'm the type of guy that just wants to crawl into a cave, slide that tray under the door, and leave me alone. I don't like public exposure. I get frustrated because not more people know about what we're doing. Well, let me tell you a funny little story. I get calls from Google all the time, and they're trying to sell me this and that and the other. And I talked to one of the Google representatives the other day, and I do this, and I said to him, "Do you know how bad shape we are in America today?" And he goes, "Yeah. And what do you think the cause of that is?" And to his credit, he said, "Well, the family, the breakdown of the family." And I'm going, "Well, God, thanks for this call today." But I didn't stop there.
Yeah, he played right into your hand.
Yeah, he did. And I started talking to him about the natural family, directed him to the website. He told me that his parents had been married for 60 years.
Ooh.
And I said, "That's really unusual. And do me a favor. Tell them that I personally want to thank them for doing what they're doing. They're in a minority.
Very rare."
And he said, "I understand that." And he said, "I really appreciate what my parents have done for me." Then he put me on hold, brought up the website, and signed the doggone pledge.
Well, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. So it's nice to get those, but I'm not getting enough of those. Okay, the kind of energy that I'm putting out here, we should be we're the best kept secret in America, as far as I'm concerned. We're the best kept secret in America. Now, one side of me wants to say that's good, because I have no desire to ever be on Hannity or any of the other Tucker, any of those shows. I have no desire whatsoever to be on those. I have no desire to go out and do public speaking. None whatsoever. Again, I want to hide. I don't want to be doing what I'm doing. This isn't me. But then again, I didn't really have a choice here. There's a thing called a calling. And I can understand from my background how I might be qualified to doing what I'm doing because of bad experiences I had in my family. And I get that. But right now, I want to thank all of you that listen and tell your friends about us. But I guess I want to thank all those that listen and don't tell your friends about us, because that way that keeps me away from this public exposure that I want. So thank you.
So if you get mad at BJ, tell your friends.
Yes, yeah. Get upset with me. You want to hurt me? Make sure people know what I do, what I'm about. Look, I'm sorry, and we have, right now it's a $100 challenge, but you can't tell me of anything else in America that is more important. Stop that. I understand the church, but you don't have a vehicle to get there, folks. In those government-run schools, Google, Facebook, Twitter, all put Christianity down. If you start talking about Christianity or Jesus Christ, you get disconnected from your not your caller, but who you're talking with. Their eyes will start to roll. I'm just talking about your children. Their eyes will start to roll. Oh, we're going to talk about this again? No way. How are you going to get them to the church? The vehicle, folks, is the family. But guess what? It's right. The vehicle's broken down. The doors are falling off.
Well, the church is following the school program. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of teachers going to church, and they are really, really confused. And we're almost up to our hour break. Here's a little clip to play.
Is there such a thing as truth? Or is everything, including truth, a statement of personal opinion or preference? In other words, is truth relative? For our purposes here, let's put aside the science angle. Yes, you can sit on a couch and not appear to be moving, but since the Earth at the equator is rotating at 1,100 miles per hour, you are, from that perspective, moving, and very fast. I'm not talking about that kind of relative. Let's confine ourselves to the more everyday questions of truth, like, does it exist? Once the answer to this question was obvious, usually confined to late-night discussions in college dorm rooms, but no longer. Truth is going through a tough time. A white woman feels black and represents herself to be so. She rises in the leadership ranks of the NAACP until her fiction is exposed. She refuses to go quietly, however. She feels black, and so she is black. A 69-year-old man in the Netherlands petitions the court to legally change his age to 49 because that's how he feels. And of course, seemingly on a daily basis, men and more boys with all the chromosomes and body parts that make them distinctly male declare themselves to be female. And women and more girls likewise declare themselves to be male. They feel they're one sex or the other, therefore they are that sex, and we must accept that regardless of what the truth is. In a viral video, a 5-foot 9-inch American Caucasian male asks students at the University of Washington to acknowledge that he's Chinese or 6'5" or a woman. Some hesitate, but no one will tell him what he's saying is not true, that he's not what he says he is. That would be mean and intolerant. This true for you but not for me relativism is disconcerting because it requires the acceptance of obvious contradictions, denial of reality, and common sense. Rather than adjusting our lives to the truth has to adjust itself to us. But it's very difficult to live this way, not to mention it being highly impractical. We rely on mind-independent, universal truths in order to think clearly, to navigate life. Otherwise, we quickly get lost. There must be some things that just are, things that are true. This way points north for everybody, no matter what anyone happens to prefer or sincerely believe. So what is truth? At its root, truth is a match-up with reality. A story, a statement, or belief is only true if it lines up with what's real. It's like a socket wrench fitting perfectly onto a bolt. Reality is the truth maker. Reality makes something true. To say the earth is flat or the moon is made of green cheese is false. Why? Because it doesn't match up with reality. Until quite recently, the purpose of all education in large part was the pursuit of truth. The motto of Harvard University, for example, is veritas, Latin for truth. No more. Anyone who says education should be about the pursuit of truth is immediately shot down with the comeback, whose truth? Increasingly, people speak of my truth or say it's true for me or your reality, as though truth is merely a matter of opinion or perspective. At the 2018 Golden Globe Awards, Oprah Winfrey famously said that speaking your truth is the most powerful tool we all have. Now, you can have your experience or your perspective, but there's no such thing as your truth or my truth. There is only the truth, that which is true for everyone. As Wall Street Journal writer Byron Tao noted, Oprah employed a phrase that I've noticed a lot of other celebrities using these days, your truth instead of the truth. But he added, your truth undermines the idea of shared common facts. And here's another problem with your truth. If your truth is truth, anyone who doesn't hold that truth must be wrong. This sounds a lot like narcissism, and it's intellectual bullying. Believe my truth or else. Not exactly a positive pro-truth message. Yeah, truth is going through a tough time. So let's review. Truth can't be relative. If it is relative, it's not truth. To say there is no truth for all people is to declare a truth for all people. In effect, you're saying it's true that there is no truth. And to declare that both your and my opinions are true, even if they contradict one another, is to speak nonsense. Truth is an opinion or preference. It's not subjective or relative. It is inescapable because reality is inescapable. No amount of double talk will change that, and that's the truth. I'm Paul Copan, author of True for You But Not for Me, for Prager University.
I played that because truth is relative is part of the school problem.
Yes. Yep. I'm okay, you're okay. Oh, that sounds familiar. That sounds like from an age gone by, don't you think?
Yeah. Got to take this break.
One I lived in. Okay. When we come back, hopefully we have Chris Sevier with us. And I've conveniently lost his contact information, so I'll have to be playing that by ear. I'm having a good time. Yes, I'm having a good time. B.J. Edwards along Mr. Anderson, your last call.
You really can retain my word. You really care for me.
Stay tuned for Last Call with your host, BJ Edwards.
BJ Edwards along with Mr. Anderson, your last call. Try this call-in number, and I'll try to see you. I'm trying to get used to this. I'm sorry, Mr. Call 713. That's my bad, not yours. 302-202-1110. 302-202-1110. BJ Edwards along with Mr. Anderson, and then the access code for a call is 745-353. If you're in a chat, I put that in there earlier. Mr. Anderson, when you were in school, we're waiting on Chris to call us in. When you were in school, did you consider, you're a Christian, you considered teaching morals, didn't you? Didn't you try to sneak those into your courses?
Well, as a teacher, it was kind of a process, because I woke up one day and realized that I was teaching the wrong things.
Uh-oh.
And so, yeah, we have a caller now that
Okay.
just came in.
Caller 713, your first name, please. Can you hear us?
Well, are you there now?
Caller 713, can you hear us? We got Don in earlier today.
He did come in. It's not, I'm just hearing garble.
Yeah.
I don't know what the issue is here.
Caller, can you hear us? Because we cannot hear you if you're trying to talk. Just sounds like you're talking at the bottom of an ocean.
So it could be our problem on our end. We are doing something new here. Old dog's doing new tricks. So our fail-safe is to go to our Skype number. We know that works.
Yeah, if 713, give us a call on 614
423-4220, and we can take your call there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we couldn't get you.
So we're gonna have to work with this one.
Yep. Hopefully they'll call in on the other number. I wonder if Chris is having trouble getting in as well. Did you know? Caller, can you hear us? We're having a good time. I can hear background noise there. America is not the world leader in mass shootings. Did you know that? Mm-hmm. And to make matters worse, some of the liberals' favorite countries have far worse mass shootings than the U.S., France, Finland, Switzerland, and worse. I don't know where that's coming from. Oh, that's okay. That's Chris, can you hear us? Chris, can you hear us?
I can hear the background noise. I
Yeah.
don't know why I can't hear the person. Maybe he's mute. Well, no, he wouldn't be muted.
Yeah. Chris, can you hear us? Chris Sevier. I don't know what's going on here.
He may not be able to hear us, but that's funny because Don could hear us when he called this number earlier. Well, sorry, folks. You know, like I said, old dogs do.
Unmute my phone there.
I can't.
Try it this way. Chris, can you hear us?
Sure can.
Okay.
Oh.
I don't know.
Sure can. How are you?
I'm doing fine. We're trying to work this program out with a new phone system.
Okay.
I'm sorry. We have on the line with us Chris Sevier. And Chris, in my haste today, I dropped all the information I had on you. I left it in my printer room. I know that you attended, what school did you attend? Can you hear me, Chris? Good.
Give me 1 second. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Let me get to where it's a little quieter.
Okay.
Okay.
So are you a college graduate in law?
I am.
Okay. And you worked for a while for the government?
I did. Yeah. I worked as I was an Army officer, and I was a prosecutor for basically DOJ. I mean DOD, and then a little bit with DOJ as well.
Okay. And what did you do for the government, Chris?
So basically, I joined, obviously after 9/11, and trained to be a combat infantry officer. Did basic training, officer candidate school, between Vanderbilt undergrad and Vanderbilt Law School, and then basically the Army was kind of indicating to me that they really needed. They wanted me to become a judge advocate general, and then that they would attach me with infantry line unit. So that's exactly what happened, and so I joined, military, deployed to Iraq, and had some combat experiences. And then after that, got involved with a lot of Christian missionary work. And then that led me to working with special forces and FBI to work on extractions for human trafficking. And then that led me to use my law degree to bring about a lot of litigation to then write bills out of a series of multi-state federal litigation.
Okay. And you did that up until when, Chris?
So, I mean, basically, since 2013 until now, me and my team have been accessing the federal district courts, filing lawsuits on a litany of different issues, ones that are typically very controversial, either dealing with abortion, dealing with human trafficking, or LGBTQ issues. And we basically use the courts as our own private legislative research council to basically figure out what the law permits, what the controlling precedent is that exists, and then we write bills directly out of that. So we're not like the left. We don't write bills out of our feelings, and we're not like some of the weak, backboneless Republicans we deal with sometimes that they themselves sometimes just write bills based on how they feel. We don't do that. We write bills based exclusively on what the Constitution of the United States requires and what the Supreme Court has interpreted the Constitution and made.
Okay. And you're testing laws. Is that what you're doing, Chris? You're seeing where there might be weaknesses that you can get in and enter.
To be honest with you, I can't hear you very well. Can you say that again?
You're testing laws?
Well, we're writing laws. But to write the law, you have to know what the legal basis is for that law. To know what the legal basis is, you can obviously just read the Constitution, but that's not good enough. You have to know how the Constitution is interpreted. To do that, you have to really dig into Supreme Court precedents, Supreme Court cases. And to really do that effectively, it's best to get involved with some kind of controversy where you're forced to really research the law and fight over an issue with an opponent who's going to take the opposite side. And then from fighting it out, kind of the truth emerges, if you will.
Oh, I think I...
No, I did that. Chris, you can probably hear me better now, but we're dealing with this new system. So now I don't think you're on the air with us, is he? Is he on the air with us?
No, because he's going through your headset.
Okay. Just, I guess, put that on voice, and we'll have to do it that way. I'll turn this on. Yeah. All right, Chris. Yeah, I got you back.
Gotta take him off the speaker.
And okay. Whoa. Okay, I got him. I think I got him off speaker. Yeah, I got you off. Can you hear me okay, Chris? Or barely?
Yeah.
Okay. I apologize for that.
Okay.
We need to work on this new system a little bit.
A lot.
Yeah, a lot. Shouldn't have done it with a guest coming in. So you've got experience. You're dealing with the government. You're trying to write laws, or you're writing laws, and you're trying to get. I'm gonna take a chance here, but you're trying to get us a little more morally balanced in the United States. Is that a fair statement?
No, I mean not whatsoever. I mean, with everything we do, it's only about what the Constitution would permit. We definitely are not interested in legislating morality. We are certainly, absolutely not interested in allowing the Democrats to legislate their per se immorality. That's for sure. So we are basically trying to get the laws to accord with what the Constitution requires. And there's tons of issues, mainly advanced by the left, where the Constitution is being either rewritten, discarded, or just completely abused. This is especially true in the LGBTQ issue fight. We've been very much involved in that battle. And it's not because we have any animus towards anyone who would self-identify as a homosexual. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah,
We got to keep checking
it's
that
because, sorry, go ahead.
No, we can hear you fine, Chris. Go ahead.
Okay, so I mean, basically, we want to make sure that the states are creating and enforcing policies that would accord with the United States Constitution, and what the rule of law requires.
Okay, and you've recently got you.
So,
go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead. That's fine.
Let's take turns. Let's be polite.
You've recently gotten involved with what you call secular. I forget how you put that again. I'm lost without my notes here.
Secular humanism?
Yes.
Yeah, secular humanism.
Yeah, and that's a.
So one thing we've got is a bill. We have a resolution that we're hoping the states will introduce that resolves the secular humanism. It's also referred to as postmodern individualistic moral relativism or expressive individualism. That worldview is a religion. And the Supreme Court of the United States in Torcaza versus Watkins has already confirmed that secular humanism is a religion for the purposes of the First Amendment Establishment Clause. Just about all the major court of appeals have found the same thing. And so we want the states to recognize that worldview is a religion because that's exactly what it is. And then therefore it will stop the left from basically enshrining their worldview into law, because the government is prohibited from putting religion over non-religion. That's what the Establishment Clause would say. The government, with the First Amendment Establishment Clause, was never designed to just prevent Christians from enshrining their moral beliefs into law. It was designed, if not more so, to stop moral relativists from enshrining their religious beliefs into law as well. And so, yes, we have a resolution, and then we have a bill called the Life Appropriation Act. It's a pro-life bill. We have a bill called the Disentanglement Act, which is a bill that really does away with all the LGBTQ policies. I mean, all of them. And then we have another bill that we're rolling out that deals with sex education opting in, and all of that is based on the same framework of the Establishment Clause of the United States Constitution.
Chris, we're going to have to take a quick break. When we come back from break, I want to talk about the disentanglement. That's an interesting term. Term. B.J. Edwards, along with Mr. Anderson, your last call. We're on with Chris Sevier.
Keeping you informed. This is Last Call with B.J. Edwards.
B.J. Edwards, along with Mr. Anderson. We have a special guest, Chris Sevier, who is deeply engaged in trying to get some laws passed in the United States. And disentangle me, Chris. What do you mean by disentanglement?
So we have a bill called the Disentanglement Act. We wrote this out of about 15 federal lawsuits that we filed. Some of this litigation included us suing a bunch of the libraries that were hosting Drag Queen Storytime for Children. We're basically saying that Drag Queen Storytime for Children was a religious event that was misusing state-funded assets to then try to indoctrinate children to a religious worldview. The Disentanglement Act is the silver bullet that will overrule Obergefell. It is the bill that will do that. It is the bill that will ultimately called every red state, every blue state, and the federal government to stop creating and to stop enforcing any LGBTQ policy. I mean, no more gay marriage policy. No more sexual orientation discrimination statutes like COTA, which Jack Phillips was prosecuted under. No government paying for sex change operations. No drag queen story times at the public libraries promoted and hosted by the public library. No allowing, policies that would allow you to change your birth certificate or for men to participate in women's sports in public schools, because all of those policies are non-secular in nature. They're actually non-secular shams that cultivate indefensible legal weapons against non-observers of the religion of secular humanism, and they serve to excessively entangle the government with the religion of secular humanism. Those policies fail the Lemon test, which is a test used by the Supreme Court to determine if a policy is constitutional, and therefore violate the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. That is the way to frame the issue, and that's what our bill does.
Now, the Supreme Court looked at the First Amendment and said, we can have gay marriage. And you're saying not so fast.
The Supreme Court did not look at the First Amendment.
Okay.
The Supreme Court looked at the 14th Amendment, Equal Protection and Substantive Due Process Clause, and they found that marriage was a fundamental right, an existing right, an individual right, pursuant to that amendment right there. And the problem with that approach is that, first of all, if marriage was a civil right, if it really was an individual right, fundamental right, existing right for self-identified homosexuals pursuant to the 14th Amendment, then very obviously it would have to be a fundamental right, individual right, existing right for self-identified polygamists, zoophiles, objectophiles, and so forth. But nobody actually believes that. No one's going to allow another form of marriage to come about because it's not a civil rights issue. The question presented is, when can you use the 14th Amendment? The 14th Amendment only has jurisdiction if the matter involves immutability in genetics, or if the issue involves like American tradition and heritage. Well, we have testimonials from thousands of ex-gays who testify that they lived the lifestyle and completely left it behind. We have testimonials from all of these amazing medical experts who are jumping up and down saying there is no gay gene. So therefore, the idea of immutability is out the window. In fact, we would submit that for anyone to say that the LGBTQ civil rights movement is equal to the race-based civil rights movement, whereas the race-based civil rights movement was actually predicated on immutability and genetics, that is an immense act of racial bigotry. It's an act of racial animus. It's fraudulent. It's intellectually dishonest. It's sexually exploitative, emotionally exploitative. It's wrong in every way. And so, the history of homosexuality, in terms of whether or not American tradition and heritage could play a role in it, is that homosexuality was illegal until basically 2003 when Lawrence overruled Bowers, Supreme Court case. And the reason is that homosexuality erodes community standards of decency. The states have a compelling interest to uphold community standards of decency. So having marriage bans that only allow the state to recognize marriage between one man and one woman is rationally related to a narrowly tailored compelling state interest. But more importantly than that, these policies that will respect any form of parity marriage are patently unconstitutional because it takes an enormous amount of faith to believe that those marriages are actually marriage. Those policies are non-secular in nature. They're advancing a religious belief system to normalize something that millions of voters and taxpayers believe to be deeply and self-evidently immoral.
What's the difference between immutability and born that way?
Well, there's nothing really. It's just a fancy term. I mean, immutability would mean born that way. It means genetics. And so, again, they hung their whole argument on people are born this way. And so when we're in court and when we're before the legislature, we're basically saying, listen, we're not trying to prove or disprove whether or not there's a gay gene. There's all of this evidence to show there's not. There's all of these people who feel, they base everything on their emotion and jump up and down and say, we feel this is the way it is. Well, we're not trying to prove or disprove that, but what it is a matter of religion. And therefore, this whole issue falls within the exclusive jurisdiction of the Establishment Clause, balanced with the Free Exercise Clause. The bills that we write are not for the Republicans and they're not for the Democrats. They're based on what the Constitution allows and requires. And what the Constitution allows and requires is that, whether I like it or not, anybody in any state has the ability to self-identify as a homosexual, and adults can live out that lifestyle if they want to. The Free Exercise Clause permits that. They can have wedding ceremonies. They can, a man could marry a man and believe that that man's his wife. If he wants to do that, he can do that. But the Establishment Clause of the United States Constitution requires the state and federal government to completely stop recognizing any of those policies as real. This means the elementary schools cannot be teaching LGBTQ history in the public elementary schools. It's a massive violation of the Establishment Clause. This means that libraries cannot be hosting drag queen story time. This means that COTA statutes can have to completely go away, because sexual orientation is not like race. Race, skin tone, there's no choice in skin tone. But sexual orientation is something that deals with morality and ethics and belief systems. And the government can't do anything to condone that. Now, the government it's okay for the government to have man-woman marriage laws, because there's no rational, reasonable observer who would say that man-woman marriage is prospectively immoral. Nobody believes that to be true. But there are thousands of taxpayers who think that other forms of marriage are completely immoral, that they believe that to enable acts of immorality is itself an act of immorality. Therefore, for their taxpayer dollars to be used to advance that worldview causes them to violate their own conscience by the simple act of paying taxes. It is a direct violation of the Establishment Clause. The problem is that Republicans have been incapable of framing their arguments this way, either because they don't understand them or they just don't want to look at them this way. But that is what the law is. And so what we're trying to do is to get all the family groups and the people who would call themselves Republicans to understand what the law really is. The left is mastered in manipulating the law to just bring about things that are totally unconstitutional.
Amen. So does the first...
So that's what we're trying to do. And we're not just doing it with one issue. We're dealing with abortion funding. We're dealing, and a lot of times, we're not trying to engage in prohibition. We're not trying to get rid of homosexuality. But we're definitely wanting the government to stop promoting it. And we want the government to get out of the parity marriage business. The same thing with abortion. We have the Life Appropriation Act, very powerful bill. And that's a bill that's going to require all 50 states and the federal government to forever stop giving money to abortion facilities, because the Establishment Clause prohibits it. We were involved with a litigation in California dealing with Title 10 funding, where Trump administration, through the Department of Public Health, withheld $60 million from Planned Parenthood. A bunch of states sued. The problem with the way that the Trump administration has framed the issue, they basically said, we're not going to give money to Planned Parenthood because we're not going to do it, which caused all these pro-life groups to jump up and down as a celebration. But we've been involved in that litigation saying, you cannot frame the issue that way. You've got to say that the reason why the government cannot give money to facilities providing convenience abortions is because the Establishment Clause of the United States Constitution prohibits it. You have to provide a constitutional basis. And the reason why our bill, the Disentanglement Act, will overrule Obergefell, if the Republican, the red states will grow up and pass the bill, it's because the only way to overrule the Supreme Court is if there is a resolved case in controversy. And in that case in controversy, if there was another constitutional question that was lurking in the shadows but was undecided upon, then precedent, stare decisis, does not apply whatsoever. In the case of Obergefell, the First Amendment Establishment Clause issue was totally right there lurking in the shadows and was never argued. Mm-hmm. The question that was argued was, does the 14th Amendment require all 50 states to adopt this religious worldview and impose it on its citizens? That was the question. The case should have been dismissed for lack of subject matter jurisdiction, because homosexuality has nothing to do with immutability or genetics or American history. There's a really good case called the Holloman case, where the court says, it's a case out of the 11th Circuit, so it's not a Supreme Court case, but nevertheless, it's controlling precedent as far as we can find. It's a case where the courts say that emotional beliefs, emotional feelings, sincerity of belief cannot be used to usurp the Establishment Clause. The only thing the left has when it comes to abortion funding or homosexuality is they really feel that homosexuality is based on genetics and immutability, or they really feel that abortion isn't immoral. But I mean, their feelings are irrelevant. The law should not care about that. Our biggest thing when we're dealing with Democrats and Republicans is we're basically screaming at them saying, listen, you guys have a duty pursuant to Article 6 of the United States Constitution as state representatives or federal representatives to not create or enforce policies that violate the Constitution. Currently, those guys, a lot of members are in violation of their oath of office. So we're really trying to hold them to their duty. And, a lot of them are well-intended. They just don't understand this stuff. And, the problem is that the courts have way too much power because they've taken the laws and they've created all this tricky and squishy language to then twist things into reality. That's exactly what's happened with Obergefell. I mean, it's basically the Supreme Court justices manipulating things is what they just did. 5 lawyers that are unelected and unaccountable. So the Disentanglement Act will be able to undo all of that. And the longer we wait to not roll that out, the worse it gets. So it's real important that this coming session, states step forward to run this bill, and this family group, help push this bill. It's one thing for people to get online on Facebook and complain about how the LGBT people are terrible. That's not going to do anything, really, ultimately. What's really going to stop all of this is to get the laws to accord with what the United States Constitution.
Kind of losing you. Hang in there.
Okay.
Okay, got you back. Sorry about that.
He moved something.
Right.
Well, at the same time I did. So if I get my feelings hurt, that's okay. The Constitution doesn't protect me just because I got my feelings hurt, right?
Doesn't care about that. The establishment clears, facts don't care about feelings, as Ben Shapiro always says. Well, the Establishment Clause does not care about feelings either. We do not care how people feel. We care about what the law requires. I mean, that's, we want people to be able to formulate their own beliefs. I mean, we would submit that, there's the big debate. At the end of the day, the big debate is only this. It all comes down to, is America a Christian nation or is America a savage nation? That's basically the fundamental argument. And the Supreme Court found in Holy Cross versus Trinity that America is a Christian nation. But then again, and that was in the 1800s, then again in 1992 in Planned Parenthood versus Casey, the Supreme Court under Justice Kennedy found that at the heart of liberty is man's ability to define his own meaning of the universe, which basically means to each his own, and America is a savage nation. But the problem with that worldview is that was exactly what the sign of a Buchenwald concentration camp read. So America, we would submit, is not officially a Christian nation. It is certainly not a savage nation. America, at best, is unofficially a Christian nation, whereas the laws of the United States have to be fashioned in a way where they're predicated on self-evident morality, which, by the way, only happens to parallel the Bible. But we don't mandate Christianity. But we sure as heck do not let the left continue to use taxpayer dollars to advance, a worldview that is objectively removed from reality, dehumanizing, dangerous, desensitizing, destructive. That's got to stop. It doesn't matter how the blue legislatures feel. They've got to stop doing it. It's completely in violation of their duty under Article 6. But the way to stop it is to have legislation introduced that makes the states come under the Constitution. And then when it's challenged and it goes to the court, it's going to not be upheld because, thank goodness for President Trump and Mitch McConnell. They've been pumping the judiciary full of red judges.
That's a good thing. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to take a quick break, Chris. When we come back, I want to give us a progress report and also maybe some contact information for people who want to help you. This is B.J. Edwards along with Mr. Anderson. We're talking to Chris Sevier. Hang in there, Chris. We'll be right back with you.
Stay tuned for Last Call with your host, B.J. Edwards.
Welcome back. This is B.J. Edwards along with Mr. Anderson. We're talking to barrister Chris Sevier, who has been prodding his way through our judicial system, trying to establish some righteousness and justice where it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot. When you were talking about Chris deciding whether we were a what kind of a nation we were, and you're talking about the former good men and women of the United States, they'd never been to a gay pride parade, because that answers the question real quick. When you see not only who's in there, but who's watching and who's saluting them and who's prodding them on. Anyway, Chris Sevier, where are you in the process right now? Are we talking about you're working at a state level right now and hoping to get a Supreme Court to look at what you're doing? How is this? How do you see this panning out?
So basically, the federal government has jurisdiction over running this bill, but so do the individual states. Mm-hmm. They both have what's called concurrent jurisdiction. So we wrote a bill called the Marriage and Constitutional Restoration Act, and we had in 2018 South Carolina, Wyoming, and Missouri basically introduced that bill. This past session, we had Kansas introduce the bill, which is the most up-to-date, recent version of the bill. It created an explosion in the media because the left is terrified of this bill because it is the way to overrule Obergefell. And the lawyers on the left really know that. And so they're freaking out over this bill. But this session, we're basically taking the Marriage and Constitutional Restoration Act, the language that was introduced in Kansas by Representative Garber in 2019, and we're hopefully to run it in as many states as possible. For folks to help us out, this is what they can do. They can do a Google search, for Kansas and Marriage and Constitutional Restoration Act, and the House bill will come up. That there's lots of articles on it, and just download that bill and send it to the members of the House and Senate in your state, and ask them to make that law in your state. That would help tremendously. We'll soon have another website up that says deals with the Disentanglement Act. It's got a copy of the talking points and the individual bill language for each individual state. And we're in the process of writing that right now. But that would help us tremendously, big time.
Okay. And I've got contacts, and I can probably post those to my Facebook page, Chris, for you. In the back of my mind, and on the top of my heart, is I want the United States to pass a Defend the Natural Family Act. How?
Well, to do that, really, the Disentanglement Act is what that is. I mean, okay. So we talk. Here's a question we get. The left says, okay, fine, parity marriage policies are unconstitutional. Okay, fine. All right, we think that. All right, it takes a lot of belief to believe that these are actual marriages, and so we understand, we get that. But then they argue, but if that's true, then any policy that would respect man-woman marriage is also unconstitutional. And we respond back to saying, no, that's not true. Because when you get married, when a man and woman get married, what that does is, it's basically reflecting what actual marriage is. It doesn't take any faith for anyone to believe that's actual marriage. This is how Chief Justice Roberts framed it. He would say that the practice is natural, neutral, non-controversial. It doesn't put religion over non-religion. It's not as if when you get married, you have to get married in Jesus' name. But the states have, rational, related, compelling state interests to uphold community standards of decency, and man-woman marriage policies accomplish that majorly. It's self-evidently true that that's the case. And so man-woman marriage policies should always be there. We have another bill called the Elevated Marriage Act, which really, it strengthens marriage by basically getting rid of no-fault divorce, but allows couples who want to be subjected to the rules of no-fault divorce to choose to opt into that marriage option. And so that's another bill that we really want to have rolled out that we had Kansas introduce this past year called the Elevated Marriage Act.
Some areas that attack the natural family, Abortion, you already mentioned that, and I see that loud and clear what you're doing there. But what about divorce? What about pornography? What about drug, child, spousal abuse?
Let's talk about pornography. Let's talk about two things. Let's talk about pornography. Let's talk about three things: pornography, strip clubs, and social media censorship. Okay.
Okay.
There's a bill that we've written for all 50 states called the Modernization Decency Act. Right now, while I'm on the phone with you right now, I'm in Paris, France. Right now, what I'm doing here is I'm every day, every minute, my team is waking up and we're writing the bill language for all 50 states. I've got 4 more states to go, and then we'll have all 50 states completed. The Modernization Decency Act combines 3 bills that we were running all around the country over the last couple of years. Basically, so basically I can explain that in 3 parts. The first part of the Modernization Decency Act says that when you go buy a laptop or cell phone, the retailer in your state is required to install a filter that automatically blocks websites that are facilitating human trafficking and prostitution, and websites that display child pornography, revenge pornography, and X-rated materials. If you're an adult and you want to have access to adult websites, you can. You got to show proof of ID with a retailer. You have to pay a one-time nominal fee of $20, which is remitted back to the state to go to a grants program so that where nonprofit groups in the state can apply for grant funding. And then, of course, the Internet's going to be just like it is right now, but basically it will mean when someone goes to the Best Buy and buys a computer, instead of paying Geek Squad to install some third-party filter, which is really a hassle and really expensive, the computers and laptops are going to come with blocking mechanisms already installed and activated, and the group of adult consumers that want to have access to that content, they're going to have to take the few steps to have it removed if they want to have it removed. So that's the first part of the bill. The second part of the bill imposes a $5 entrance fee, admission fee into strip clubs. That $5 is remitted back to the state to go to the same grants program that the one-time $20 filter deactivation fee goes to. The name of the grants program, by the way, is the name of the state, and then it would be like Ohio Human Trafficking and Child Exploitation Prevention Grants Fund. That's the name of the grants fund. And that $5 strip club entrance fee statute has passed in about 4 or 5 states and has been upheld by the Texas Supreme Court. And so we already know that's constitutional. So that would imply that a one-time $20 filter deactivation fee is constitutional. And so those two things together are going to do more to protect families and reduce the demand of human trafficking and reduce divorce than any other measure since the inception of the Internet, period. The third part of the bill, when we run it separately, it's called the Stop Social Media Censorship Act. It's a bill that says if you, the state, whatever state you're in, if you're censored for religious or political reasons by a major social media website, you'll have standing to sue them in federal court where you can seek $75,000 in statutory damages, attorney's fees, and other forms of relief as well. And what that's going to do is it's going to stop the social media censorship. People think that it's really best to address that issue on a federal level, but it's not. When you sign up to use a social media website, you're entering into a contract. Contracts are mainly regulated by the state. And so basically this bill codifies an existing form of breach of contract that's happening, but there's never any statutory damages. And so what it's going to do is it's going to really bring major accountability to stop all that social media censorship that's taking place. And the reason we're running the 3 bills together is because it creates the narrative that the State House is not for censorship. See the Stop Social Media Censorship section. I mean, in fact, it's such an anti-censorship bill that it really is going to crush the social media websites if they continue to censor people like Billy Graham. However, the State House is for limited censorship if the content is injurious to children and if it promotes human trafficking. So that's how the 3 parts go together. We've written this bill for all 50 states. It's been really difficult to write it, but we wrote it out of a huge amount of litigation we brought against Apple, Google, Verizon, Samsung, Dell. And, we had to make sure we had all the controlling Supreme Court precedent on our side. So that's in terms of pornography, in terms of social media censorship, that's another bill that we'll be rolling out, Modernization Decency Act.
If somebody wants to financially support you, can they do that? They
can. It's crazy. This is what we've learned. there's a whole lot of family groups, policy groups that are really good at raising donations that have absolutely zero ideas. In fact, not only do they have no ideas, they'll literally try to stop anybody who they think is their competitor, okay? Then you have the other side of that, where you have groups like us that are only all about ideas and getting the result at all costs.
Right.
And so we're really focused on that just all the time. I mean, basically, we're working nonstop to make it to where the states will have to pass all of these bills. Like we don't even want to ask. We're like, pass it or else. It's basically our position when we deal with members of the House and Senate. Because I mean, a lot of times the stuff we're dealing with is just such an egregious problem, or they have a duty under Article 6 to do it anyway. And a lot of these guys, to be honest with you, a lot of the state senators and House members we deal with, like, no offense to them, but a lot of them are just clowns. They have no idea about how the law works. They basically just decided to run for office because, they thought it'd be cool, or they thought, like, it'd be fun. And they're all well-intended, and these matters are complex and difficult, and we can appreciate that for sure. And it's our duty to educate them. But at the same time, like, we really want them to pass meaningful laws and stop engaging in sham legislation dealing, especially when we're giving them the answers and we're providing the Attorney General's offices with all the ammo in the world they would need to be able to defend everything we're bringing them. I mean, it is our duty to get the language as absolutely airtight as possible for them. We're working on that. So back to your question about donations. Yeah, right now we have a website called humantraffickingpreventionact.com, and that's a place where, go into contact and people can donate to us there, and it helps. I mean, definitely donations help us a ton. But as soon as we get the first round of these bills done, we'll have a new website up for Special Forces of Liberty and de facto Attorney General. It's just really the question is, what do we want to focus on, donations, or do we want to focus on results? And every time the answer is results.
I get that.
Every time.
I get that. Believe me, I get that. It sounds like you're doing some things very much parallel to what I like to see happen. And I apologize, Chris, for the technical difficulties we had today. We're going to try to work on those. We were trying a new system so we get callers in, but we didn't recognize the callers were coming in, so we lost those. Almost lost you. So we're having a good time. That's all I can say. I appreciate all you're doing.
Yeah, man.
And I know you run about 110 mile per hour, so I'm going to let you go back to what you've been doing, brother. Enjoy your stay in Paris, and we'll be looking forward and following you in terms of what you're doing. And maybe from time to time you can call us back up and give us maybe a 5 or 10 minute update in terms of what's happening and what we can do to help you out. And I'll try to get more information. I'll try to put it more in digestible terms so we can send it out to the folks that do support us. Fair enough?
Yeah, that sounds great. The number one thing people can do to help us, the absolute number one thing is this. Google Kansas and Marriage and Constitutional Restoration Act. Find the bill that was introduced in 2019 by Representative Garber. Download that bill. Send it to the members of the House and Senate. Or, go to the website for House of Representatives in your state. Get the email list, call the members, and email different members, especially if you know them or even if you don't. Send them a copy of the bill and say, I want this bill to become law in our state. That is what we really need that to happen. That will help us tremendously.
Kansas. In Kansas, correct?
All right. Thanks so much, man.
All right. Thank you, Chris. God bless you.
Kansas. Yeah, it's the Kansas version of the bill. That's right.
All righty. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Take care. Okay. We'll see you.
I feel like I need to take a deep breath here.
Last Call with BJ Edwards. Real talk about real life.
I've had conversations with Chris Sevier was our guest today, and I know that you're probably going to need a moment or two to settle down because Chris does run a pretty high RPM. I've had conversations with him before, and Chris is at the micro level. And for us to understand it, and I'm going to have to be able to translate this somehow, some way to a macro level, what this really means. That's why I asked the question, about the Natural Family Protection Act, because I think what he's talking about sounds like if it's not what we're looking for, it's going to give us a leg or two up in terms of what we're trying to do. Don't you think, Mr. Anderson?
Pretty darn close.
Yeah.
Pretty darn close.
Yeah.
And I like a lot of what I like a lot of what he's saying. I just can't imagine that kind of work. Boy. Yeah.
He's been at it, and he's been there.
And I'd like to get more on board, and I think pushing this Kansas Act, we need to get more detail, and maybe even get that loaded on our website so that people can copy and share that with their representatives, whatever state they're in.
Yeah.
And add that onto our events list page and get the ball rolling on these kind of things.
Got some friends in Idaho, and they seem to be pretty political active. So I'm going to give them a call and see what's going on. I wanted to finish just real briefly. America is not the world leader in mass shooting. In response to horrific mass shootings earlier this month in Texas and Ohio, former President Barack Obama used a rather tired leftist talking point regarding the frequency of such tragedies. First, and we've heard this before and we believe it, no other nation on earth comes close to experiencing the frequency of mass shootings that we see in the United States. No other developed nation tolerates the level of gun violence that we do. And we all know, folks, this is not about guns. This is about emotions. You don't shoot somebody just offhand. You're driven to do that. The U.S. is well below, by the way, the world average in terms of the number of mass public shootings, and global increase over time has been much bigger than for the United States. Our country ranks 64th in per capita. This is hard to believe. What you hear from the fake news. Our country ranks 64th in per capita frequency of mass shootings and 65th in the murder rate out of the 97 countries where measurable incidents have occurred between 1998 and 2015. A quick look at the list gives us some specifics regarding the per capita rate of mass shootings. Again, will more gun control take care of it? No. By the way, near the top are various African and Middle East countries like Central African Republic, Iraq, Afghanistan, and Nigeria. Not only are there other countries dealing with higher rates of deaths from mass shootings, but the rates of these incidents are increasing at a pace alarmingly higher than in America. We're not bragging here. One shooting is bad enough. But let's get things in perspective. And even if we did lead, taking guns away is not going to stop the problem. It's going to keep you from defending more of the problem. Having that situation, was it in Missouri, Mr. Anderson? Was that the state where the off-duty fireman stopped a mass murder?
Missouri, yes.
Okay. The left wants to make this an issue about the tool, when the real problem is that we're creating a society of godless, antisocial hermits. We don't have a gun problem in the United States. First and foremost, we have a moral and cultural problem. Stripping our citizens of God-given rights won't make that go away. Again, we're going to get back to the family because that is the core of any nation. That's the foundation. That's the cornerstone. That's where you're going to live or that's where you're going to die. By the way, on our Natural Family website, we do have Friends and Family section that is growing. We're looking for organizations that you think are in line with what we're talking about. We see our initial mission, by the way, is to place our thumb on the scale of public opinion. Today's public opinion is tomorrow's laws. And those laws are the foundation for future moral code of our nation or any nation. That is a fact. You can see it historically. You can talk to sociologists, psychologists. And if they're honest with you, they're going to tell you the same thing. But right now, because the church, and more specifically the fathers in the family and the leaders in the church, have abrogated their responsibilities, we have lost our moral way. And I'm as guilty as the next guy. When it came to teaching my children about God, well, that's the church's job. Not mine, the church's. The pastors and the Sunday school teachers. Haven't you got somebody that can help my son or daughter? Come on. I can't do this. Speaking of teachers, when it comes to educating my children, once again, that's not my job. I didn't go to school to become an educator. I'm just the father here. And mom and dad both have to work. So that job's for the public schools. Not.
It's still a complicated question. I became a teacher because initially I wanted to be a stay-at-home dad and educate my kids at home. And I thought if I had a teaching degree, it would make that easier to do. Instead, I ended up being a public school teacher with my kids in public school. And
is that because of monetary issues?
Exactly.
Okay.
We're back to Don's issues over taxes. Well, It's not just taxes. Making family expenses is harder and harder all the time for all kinds of reasons.
Yeah, I got
it's
that
economics.
This week. I got that this week.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Unexpected expenses in the household and any number of things can set you back. Big ones today are health care and so forth. That's another thing that the government shouldn't have responsibility for, but we keep giving it to them.
Yep.
It's a hard question, and I understand that so many parents, well, they understand too the dilemma. Well, the public school's not good, but what else do I do with the kid?
Right.
And if you're like Canada, and it's probably coming to the USA, unless people like Chris can help us out here with legislation, they're passing laws forbidding parents to interfere with the education of their kids.
To participate.
And they'll take the kids away and put them in state care if the parents are interfering with the education. And there's a lot of organizations out there too that are fighting homeschooling. So, I mean, it's a battle. We got to be on top of it all the time. How do we resolve it? I don't know.
Vision. Where there's no vision, the people perish. And again, I'm going to get back to where we are. That vision has to entail the natural family.
I agree.
It has to. As something to aspire to. Again, we live in an amoral nation. In order to turn it around, we are going to need the church and church leadership. But more importantly, we must have the fathers taking their leadership role back. As goes the family, so goes the church. As goes the church, so goes the nation. And by the way, it used just to be the family and the church. Those were the institutions that were dictating those morals that we're talking about. But now you've got the news media, and they're all pressing to affect one thing, and that's public opinion. They need to get the majority either standing by or be sympathetic or standing with what you're doing. All three of those add together, but you've got the church, you've got the family, then you've got the news media, you got entertainment, you've got business, you've got educational institutions. Just incredible amount of pressure being applied to you. We talked about social media before. It's incredible. But it's still up to the fathers to start this ball rolling in the right direction. And by the way, the family is the key to prescribing what is needed in society, not the schools, not the news media, not entertainment, not business, not education, not even the church. We've got the tail wagging the dog here, folks. The family should be dictating to those institutions, and it's vice versa, bass backwards.
And it is about fathers. If you heard that in our news clip that we played earlier, one of the items that the California schools were attacking was fathers.
Mm-hmm.
Why do they do that? Well, they see it more than our side sees it.
That's right. That's right. We've been away from it for so long. And again, all power and influence should emanate from the family institution. And that's prescribed in the Bible. It's just incredible how far we've gone. Think about it this way. God created the family first, right? Not the church, not businesses, not the news media, but the family. And there's a good reason for that. There's that vehicle again. Why did God create the family institution? Why was that critical that that be created first?
Populate the earth.
Where would you learn authority? If we're going to submit to Christ, where would you learn authority? Real work, planet Earth here. Where are you going to learn that? Not from a pastor and not from public officials. The community, right? Hillary, the community? Nah. It starts in the family.
Takes a village
Mm-hmm.
to corrupt the child.
I can remember the 6 most scary words in my young world coming from my mother, and those were, wait till your father comes home.
I heard those words too.
Ouch. What about education? That as well needs to start in the family. Sadly, in today's American government-run schools, we talked about them earlier, they teach today's majority morals. We have morals by democracy. And then the news media polishes them off, as does the business, and the emotional appeal. You know what a natural family is. We talk about it all the time. We don't have to talk about it. You see it. It is natural. It doesn't work any other way. Anyway, naturalfamilystrong.com, naturalfamilystrong.com. Tell your friends about it when that Google representative calls. Tell them about it. Huh?
Or the guy comes to the door to sell you a new cable system.
Well, I had a religious group come to my door this week. And guess what they got? What they heard about?
Not what they wanted to tell you about.
The natural family. Got a lot of agreement there, but it wasn't quite where they wanted to go.
No, they wanted to sell you a watchtower or something. We got to go. It's noon.
All right.
And
all right.
It's been a little confusing today, but our guest has been fantastic, as usual. And good word from...
We got to thank our staffing coordinator for doing all that, don't we?
Oh, and Biker Bill, if you're listening...
Oh, yeah.
We did get your name in, so you can't...
That's Biker Bill. That's 3 times. That's what the contract says. We're out of here. Hey, have a great weekend. Stay tuned. We'll be here next week. Love y'all.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Last Call with BJ Edwards.